Oh, there we go. Welcome, everybody. This is the Fall Line with KS and Company. I'm Dave Capron, and we have an awesome podcast tonight, and we will definitely introduce our guests. We want to first thank the friends of the podcast who are helping us out. Blizzard Technica has been doing some great stuff, helping us out, getting some guests and helping Angel and I get on the hill. And then also we want to thank Nick's Boot Fitting over by Mount Snow, who helps everybody make sure the boots don't hurt. They fit right. We don't have 3 sizes too big. And then also want to thank Rollerblade. We're not using the rollerblades much right now, but we hope to this summer and do some stuff with Miles Cotter Sparrows. So we want to thank all those folks for helping us out. And Angelo, I got to tell you, we've got a cast tonight that is just awesome. We've got Mr. Michael Rogan back with us, our PSIA Aussie Alpine team coach. We have Jeff Marks, the Canadian team coach, and we have Richard Jameson out at Steamboat right now, waiting to go skiing. He left the rain out in Tahoe, and he's in the snow, so we've been making fun of Michael before we get on, because Michael's in the rain out there, I guess, which is a bummer. We want snow everywhere. But Angelo, this is unreal, man. 3 of the coaches for the 3 countries that are getting ready to go to Interski. This is going to be great tonight, man. How you doing, Angelo? Good. Has Michael been on the show before? No, just a couple of times. I'm doing good. This is exciting. I'm going to turn my mic off because some microorganisms trying to kill me. But I got some makers here in case it's a virus, and I've got this Pilsner here in case it's a bacterium. So covering the bases. This is exciting. Let's get it started.
And so sets the tone.
Yeah. So since you've been here before, Michael, and but I do want the 3 of you to introduce yourself a little bit more than we usually do with our guests. I like to usually introduce, but there's so much with the 3 of you that I don't know that I'd love our listeners to hear just about your role in each of your countries with the ski instruction world, and then and we'll go from there. Michael.
Yeah, well, it's nice to be back with you 2 guys, and certainly with Jeff and Richard. I mean, I've got the tremendous pleasure of calling Richard one of my best friends. And Jeff is quickly becoming a very good acquaintance and a friend. We spent some time in Mont-Tremblant, and I feel like we see a lot of things the same. But I'm Michael Rogan. I'm the coach of the PSIA Alpine team, and have been a part of that team since 1996.
Cool. And Richard.
Yeah. I am, other than a good mate of Michael's, I am the coach of the Australian Alpine APSI team. But more broadly, my role down in Australia is as the Alpine Technical Director. So I look after all of the Alpine training certification programs across the country and work with our big team of Alpine trainers, examiners down there, working on all the courses and designing the curriculum and writing all the educational products. But part of that job is to be the coach of our APSI national team going to Interski as well.
Cool. And Jeff from up north.
Yeah. And likewise. Thanks for having me. This is exciting. I've been kind of stoked about this since we started chatting about it, a month ago or something. So this is awesome. So my name is Jeff Marks, and I'm the National Program Director for the Canadian Ski Instructors Alliance. Also puts me in the role of head coach for our upcoming Interski team. Sounds a little bit maybe similar to Richard's description there, where my coaching role is kind of included in my broader year-round role with the organization. So, National Program Director, what does that mean? That's essentially. I work with primarily on the operations side of the organization. So I've got a team kind of spread out through the whole country, and I'm sure we'll talk about the unique things that the big countries bring in organizations like this. But so I work pretty closely with that team. We, all the operations of delivering our programs, and then program development, education development, all sorts of stuff on that end of things. So. Yeah, but it's good to be doing this. It's good to be chatting with you guys. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, this is cool for me. A lot of folks. This is the first time I've met Jeff and Richard, and folks ask me especially, and I know they ask Angelo. He's told me that what do we get out of the podcast? And they're like, this is it. I'm not sure many people in our membership get to sit down with three of the coaches for three of the countries in the world that deal with so much of what happens certification wise and that. So it's cool to chat, and that's why the first question we've asked Michael this question, and Michael, is where you learned to ski, how old you were, that kind of thing, when it first started, and Michael started on a snow day. So couldn't get to the school, but was able to get to Windham Mountain to learn how to ski from Franz Crickle. So that's where Michael did it. Had a great story in that with you and your brother going up there. You even remembered your teacher or the teacher from the school that took you up to it. I think it was a neighbor that was it Mrs. Dobson?
Yep.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool. So it's neat. I like this question because it's neat to see where like Mike Hafer, he didn't learn how to ski. I think he was like 24 or something crazy. So I'm curious, Richard, when you learned how to ski, because I heard something about grass.
Yeah, skiing on it when I was younger. But I actually started snow skiing when I was about 9 or 10. But just to give it a bit of context, there's not a lot of skiing in Australia. So if take Australia and compare it to America, and you have all of the skiing in Vermont, for example, and then the rest of the states are just desert, coast, cow paddocks and sheep paddocks. That's kind of what Australia is. So you have to go to Vermont, essentially, but it's down in the southeast part of our country. And so traveling down there as a kid was not much of an option for me because I was from essentially the Florida of Australia. So it was a long way. And I got to ski a little bit, a couple of times when I was younger. And but I did grass ski teach while I was at high school. And going on to university, that was my first job. So I did a lot more grass skiing than snow skiing.
So is it faster, and do you have grip all the time?
It is. It's kind of a little bit more like carving. It's hard to skid, actually.
Yep.
Yeah. And it hurts a lot more when you go down.
Yeah. Well, Angela, Michael was there too. That would have been nice to have a little bit of that grip at Killington because it was pretty slippery. So did you tune every day, Michael? Yes. Did you? Yes, I figured you did. Tuned every day. Kill it. Yes.
You could feel the tune melt off of your skis.
Oh, yeah. By noontime, it was like, there's not a lot left for the afternoon, man. I'm going to be skidding. If Michael sees me in the afternoon coming down on Superstar, he might be saying, you better tune tonight. He just smiles. And Jeff, how young were you, and where was it that you learned how to ski?
I mean, I was lucky enough to grow up in Jasper, Alberta, and the ski hill there is Marmot Basin. I don't know if you've heard of it, but gorgeous ski area. I was born in Jasper, national park, lots of snow, huge mountains, really, really amazing place to grow up. But you know what, to be honest, I don't remember my first ski experience, but I get to relive it every time my mom tells the story because she loves it. And it evolves a little bit every time the story gets told. But the Cole's notes on the story is that, my parents weren't avid skiers. The first time I went, I was pretty young. I was like 3 or 4 years old the first time I was in skis. And so they kind of entrusted me to one of their friends who was a skier to kind of take me out and get me going. But the way I understand it is he didn't really know that I couldn't really do much on skis. So we're there at the top of, one of the runs at Marmot Basin, and he just kind of lets me go, figuring that I can at least control my speed a little bit, which wasn't the case. So it ends in a fiery ball of flames just before I run into the day lodge at the bottom. There's usually credits that roll and, no children were harmed in the telling of this story and all that kind of stuff. It's quite fantastic. But yeah, that was apparently my first skiing experience. But I was lucky, growing up in Jasper, at the school there was a week or a couple of weeks every year where, once you hit grade 5, I think it was, you got to, you'd go to school in the morning and then you'd hop on the bus, you'd go up to the ski hill and you'd ski all afternoon, you'd take some lessons and stuff like that. So I got exposed to it kind of in any memorable sense at that time. Mm-hmm. And then by the time I was 18, I got my level 1 and away I went.
That's awesome. I would love to know, that would be my question to everybody at Interski if I was going. So hopefully Angelo will ask some folks when he's there. It's really neat to find out the different ways people got to snow and get hooked on it. Because there's been quite a few that have said that they didn't get hooked right away. And that's what I'm curious is for the three of you, was it hooked from day one or did it take a while? And why don't we just go the other way? We'll start with Jeff for this one.
Yeah, actually, it's funny you say that because like that actually describes me. Like, I mean, I was a hockey player as well as a kid growing up. That was kind of, I was on the hockey team and that was sort of what our weekends entailed. And then there was kind of a point where I think it was probably because when I got old enough to play Bantam, I think when body checking was allowed, I hadn't grown like the rest of the team. So I kept getting the crap beat out of me. And I think eventually I just got tired of being against the boards with the wind knocked out of me. So I kind of ramped up on the skiing a little bit, and it was just entertainment. Like at that point, I was a weekend skier, and my sister and I would ski, and then my buddies and I would go skiing. And then it was really kind of when a friend of mine actually took his level 1 certification and just kind of said, "Hey man, it was fun. You should do it." So I did it. And then, yeah, at that point, I think I just got interested. There was actually a real, an honest interest in what I was doing. And the more I learned, I wanted to learn. And then it's kind of been a pretty cool pathway, from there. But yeah, like I don't know that it was really I want to do this for the rest of my life kind of thing to begin with. It was just a weekend. It was a weekend sport.
Yeah. No, Richard, we don't know. He said he started skiing on snow at 9 or 10, then the grass. So it was like he must have loved it pretty much to do it on grass.
I did. I'd have to say I fell in love more with just the mountains and the snow and the environment first. Going down to that location from where I grew up was something completely different and unexpected. And I just thought it was a really cool place and lots of new things. And so I fell more in love with that. I think the skiing side of things was definitely fun for sure. I was always into sport growing up, played lots of different sports, but more summer sports from where I was from. And so I loved the sliding aspect for sure. Me and my brother got to do it together a little bit when we were kids, first starting out. I mean, my first vivid experience on skis was, I think I was lying on the ground. I don't know how I got there. I must have crashed on my first go, but my brother careening down and T-boning his ski tips right into me. I'll never forget that when I was, I think that's my first memory, but it didn't send me off. I still loved it. And I do remember my first instructor, actually. It was during that same week in a little ski resort called Smiggins in Australia. And
cool.
I thought it was a really cool sport to do.
And Michael, how quick were you hooked, to let people know again if they didn't listen to the 1 out of 20 episodes you've been with us?
Well, right away. I mean, my brother and I had good success at Wyndham on our first day, and we took to it like fish to water. I mean, we liked being outdoors. At the time, we were always outdoors as a kid, or sent outdoors as a kid, and don't come back out till it gets dark or the dinner bell rings, kind of thing. And I mean, that's thanks to my parents and sending us outside. So being outdoors in the mountains in the wintertime was something that was longed for and couldn't wait to do more of. So right away.
No. So we've got to get right into a little bit about Interski and Levi, Finland, and because everyone's ramping up. It's kind of neat. I know, talking with Troy and Schmitty and Matt and Jeb when they're here this fall, because they're here from the East. We see those guys. I know everything's ramping up. What are some of the things you're preparing in terms of, like, how's the team preparing? Are you spending time with the team specific on stuff? Is there extra time getting ready to go here? And why don't we'll let Richard kind of jump in there first. I'm just curious how your team and how the country's preparing to get ready.
Yeah, look, very different process this time around. This is my 5th term on the APSI team, and this preparation has been quite different just with the last couple of years. So we're not together at the moment. We're spread out all over the world. We got teammates in Japan, North America, Australia, Europe. They're everywhere. So we only selected our team in August this year due to having shutdowns over the last 2 years with COVID in Australia. So for example, 1 year, Victorian Resorts, which is where I'm from, we only operated for 4 days out of the whole season. So we had to cancel our tryouts for year on year until this year. And we selected in August. We got to spend a bunch of time together on snow after that, probably 7 days maybe, working on, different things from on snow clinicking to skiing to where are we going just as an organization with our teaching and technical models. And all of that is sort of building towards Interski. I don't know if it was necessarily, hey, what are we going to do at Interski? It was more about getting this new team forged together and working on stuff in a very short timeline. And we're now talking online like this to try to nut out where is that going and what are we going to present in Levi. We've got a pretty good idea, but not 100% at this point in time.
Richard, how many?
I see the other two coaches smile, Angelo. So it's like this is going to be an interesting conversation. Go ahead.
How many on your team, Richard, and how many are new in this term?
We have 15 across the whole team. There's 6 on the Alpine team, 7 including me as coach. And on that Alpine team, there's 5 out of the 6 are new. So myself and one other, Tom Langtree from Japan, this is his third team.
No pressure.
No pressure at all. Yeah.
No, they're good. They're good.
Yeah.
It's a great bunch of new people. They're going to carry us through.
And Jeff, how are things going on in Canada?
Well, I mean, I could echo quite a few of the things that Richard said there. Like we were also delayed in our process of getting the team together. I think when we finally got the team together, probably would have been a similar timeline, but we squeezed it into one season because we weren't able to do anything the previous season. Normally, and I've got 2 previous teams, as a team member in my experience, and we've done like a 2-year or 2-season 2-step process basically to get there. This time we went kind of full on everything last season, got it all done in 2 separate steps. Well, kind of 3 separate steps through the one season, which made it pretty busy and pretty full on for the people that were in the process. But we got it done, and it actually worked really well. And then once the team did get chosen, we've got 12 team members, which is a bigger team than we've had in the past. Traditionally, we've been 10. So we're up at 12 now, which is good. And in fact, we're actually at 13 because we unfortunately had an injury on the team, which means that individual won't be able to get to Levi. But instead of excluding them, we've actually added a team member. So, Rick will stay involved as we can. And he'll have a separate story to tell, but the achievement of getting there is a big deal, and it's worth everything that it is, which is pretty cool. Yeah. So we're actually 13. But yeah, like lots of Zoom calls over the summer. I mean, the organizing committee with Interski did, I thought, a really good job of kind of getting information out to us and calling us to the table and having some meetings. And when we had those opportunities, we'd then kind of take it back to the team and keep them updated. And then we have been together on snow for one camp, which was in the spring last year in the Bow Valley here, which was great. Other than the fact that I woke up the morning of with weird symptoms and tested and got to sit the whole thing out because I was positive. But my assistant coaches were awesome. I had no concerns about them, pulling the weight to get everything done, and it was great. I coached from the sidelines. It was interesting. But totally fine. And then this season, we've had a couple of light opportunities as we've gone through our course conductor trainings at the beginning of the season to get the team together, like literally a couple of training runs at the end of the day with the team. And then in late January, we're all going to get together in Quebec at Mont Orford, and that'll be sort of our next, full team opportunity to train together for a couple of days. And after that, it'll actually be Levi. We're going to go a couple of days early and get things together. So in the meantime, what the team's actually working on is really just continuing to develop their expertise in what we do. Like it's not new themes that we're working on and all that sort of stuff. It's really just as they do their work, as they work with our course conductors and stuff, that's where a lot of their training is. It's just to continue to hone the message, which is what we're going to take. So that's where they're doing a lot of their work right now.
Michael, what's going on with our PSIA Aussie crew?
Well, I feel like we're in pretty good shape. I mean, I'm gonna make sure that the audience realizes that Jeff Marks and Richard Jameson are 2 very smart individuals. So when they say that, well, they haven't had the opportunities, they're being a little country dumb there, holding the cards close to their chest. You're looking at 2 very intelligent people that have that I'm sure, like myself and Matt and the other coaches on our team, we spend all the time thinking about this all the time, and what could turn into something, or what may have a vein to pick at, or what might be a message in this Interski or the next Interskis that you saw from past Interskis. So I'm sure that both Canada and Australia are extremely prepared, will be extremely prepared, and have great material to share with the world. And we're in a similar situation. A little bit different. Our term is 4 years, so part of a term includes Interski. So that's usually in the third year. This team has been cut short by a year, so you could say that we're a year behind, or in just being a team together. But the people that are on our nation's national team are seasoned veterans in the job. Some of them are new to this process and this experience, but they're really good at what they do. And like Jeff says, a lot of our training goes from being out on the road and giving clinics and educating ski instructors and snowboard instructors throughout the course of the season. And I think one of the things that we do well is we try and have messages for Interskis. Some of them that are brand new. We'll have a couple that are brand new, kind of feeling the waters, and then a couple of ideas that are perpetuated from past Interskis and at different stages of development. And as a result, the work is ongoing and continues, and it's a development of things, because again, like the three of us get to do, Jeff, Richard, and myself. What you bring to Interski is what you do every day, and you bring that to Interski because that's what you do with our membership, and that's what is important to our membership, rather than the other way around. Going, okay, what are we going to bring and present to Interski that may not pertain to our membership, and that's just not the way that it goes. At least,
and I know you and Richard are good buddies. So and I'm curious if Jeff talks to other folks. I know you said you don't know Jeff that well yet, but how much do you guys talk about it as things are going along? Like, because you talk and see Richard, and do you see other coaches from other countries, and are you chatting about some things they're doing, or how the teams are preparing, or what are the coaches, when you connect, talk about when it comes to
Richard and I, we chat a lot about a lot of things all the time, and whether it's what our national team or his national team are doing, it might not necessarily be under that topic or umbrella, but for sure, you're talking about teaching, and we work at Heavenly Ski Resort together. So we're in the beginner area, shoulder to shoulder. So we get to watch ski instructors all the time and talk about it, and what's going well and what's not going well in the training. So it's an amazing dynamic there. And I can tell you that my relationship with Jeff, as it grows, just the other day, they put out a thing on the skis interaction, intent for interaction. Yep. And I really was not taken aback, but it was wonderful to see. They had a little graph, little thing, a slide bar thing, that talked about, I don't know what it was, whether it was pivoting or going straight or what. Anyway,
drift through carve.
Yeah, drift through carve. But I can remember we came up with a version of the fundamentals, our fundamentals before they are what they were, that talked about a soundboard and equalizers. And could you go both ways? Could you say, look, I want to carve a turn and say, set the equalizer this way, or could you go the other way and set the equalizer and then guess what the outcome would be? So when I saw that online, Jeff, I tipped my cap to you guys for putting that together that way, and it was just wonderful to see. So like minds think alike. Maybe it's great minds think alike, but Jeff and I have had some wonderful interactions, both when I've gotten the opportunity to go to Canada and with his teammates coming and working at our National Academy, which Richard is a staple of. Richard's one of our local folks that always shows up for the National Academy. So I'm pretty fortunate in that regard.
Yeah, that little video, Jeff, has had quite a bit of traction around. I've seen it on Facebook. I shared it out, and there's been a lot of chatter on the ski snow interactions. That's a pretty cool little video.
Yeah, and I mean, big shout out, Guy Hetherington, Guy Dale, big, movers on getting the productions like that together, and the script writing is really well done with Guy Hetherington. But yeah, like we've really gone down a road of trying to kind of take our membership, and we don't normally post our materials kind of publicly, right? Like but we're going to do more of that because it just creates this conversation, and we find we actually learn a ton, and we've actually done a lot of reaching out internationally to kind of get our foundational documents written and things like that. I mean, I could talk for quite a while about the amount of change we've gone through in the last few years, but yeah, I'm glad you guys like it. It's good to hear, and likewise, we've seen a lot of interesting comments, a lot of good discussions started, and you'll see more.
Cool. Yeah. And Richard, other than talking with Michael, who are do you chat with some of the other coaches or Jeff or?
No, I haven't had the pleasure to talk to Jeff too much. We've probably seen each other at some Interskis before. But like Australia and it's been a bit different in recent years, but it's a melting pot of ski instructors. There's not too many places you can go in the Southern Hemisphere to keep your winter going. So it attracts a lot of very well qualified instructors from around the world, North America, Europe, Japan, all over the place. And when they're down there, we're fortunate enough to spend time in the locker rooms and out on snow together and swapping ideas, and vice versa. A lot of our membership, not just our teams, but the broader membership, they travel overseas to work and in the Northern Hemisphere. And so they spread out amongst the world, get to chat with a lot of different people and bring those ideas back. So our system and these conversations happen regularly, not so much with the national team coaches. And that's really where our evolution has come from. It's come from all these ideas from around the world, and what we really think will work well with our guests in Australia. We sort of blend that together, and that's how we sort of have developed over the years. But yeah, Michael and I have spent a lot of time in his tuning room at his house chatting about what we do, and out on the snow. So I'm fortunate enough out in this part of the year to do that as well.
Yeah. Michael, I know, spends a little bit of time tuning his skis, and he's definitely probably pretty quick. He's done it a lot, but I know he likes to spend time tuning his skis. He makes sure that we know that we should be spending time tuning our skis.
Goal should be to tune the edge off of them in a season.
Yeah. What was your challenge in one of the early podcasts? It was like, if someone can tune the edge off, I think it was in 2 seasons, that you'd get them a new ski. Yeah. Oh, because I can't remember who it was, but I might have said it the other time when you were on talking about that, Michael. But there was someone, we were you were at Masters Academy, and it was either Killington or Mount Snow, in the hotel, in the stairway, tuning one of the other team members' skis, I think. And oh my God, there was a lot of metal on the floor. I don't know if he just shakes his head. Yes. So I don't know, Jeff.
To tune your skis. Don't be afraid to tune your skis.
Don't be afraid. So yeah. So that's kind of like a little sidebar now. How often?
Write that down for after the podcast here. Tune the edges off your skis. All right.
Yeah. Michael said if someone, how did you say that, Michael? How often do they have to tune, or not, that it would be still part of the game, that in 2 years?
You can do it in your regular process of maintenance. If you can tune the edge off your skis in 2 seasons, I'll buy you a new pair. And what'll happen is you won't be able to do it in regular maintenance. It won't be, you could just in regular maintenance, you won't be able to do it. But if you do, I'll get you a new pair, and your skiing will improve dramatically, and you'll be better for it. So
yeah.
Why save them? After 2 years, you're going to get a new pair anyway. So why save them?
Yeah. So I don't know if Michael does, because Michael must know. Coach Dave Wen, one of our staff members here, examiners in the East, will literally go around at tryouts and just at staff training to pick up people's skis, staff members and the candidates, to see if they're ready, if the skis are prepped. Now, Michael, have you done that with your team at times?
No, I've never gone around, but they are required to report in on a semi-daily basis and let me inspect their gear.
So
they bring him to me. I don't go to them.
So are they these same kind of tough requirements on the Australian team and the Canadian team?
Admittedly, it's not a requirement, but it's probably there. I mean, yeah.
And Richard, what's going on with the Australian team? They're tuning.
It is 100% a requirement, and if you skied on some of the snow that we had to ski on, you need to do it, not just be told to do it. And I think this year, with our very new team, who I was mentioning before, I spent a lot of that 7 days tuning a lot of people's skis, and that was great. I mean, even at that level, we all can learn about ski equipment maintenance and how often to do it, how to do it, and some of the best conversations that develop us as an association happen in those environments too. So,
absolutely,
we have to.
So are these part of the messages you'll deliver at Interski, Michael? And I know you guys have your programs. You can't tell us everything, but like, what is some of the themes? I know we all try to take our country program, and I know the learning connection model is coming from here and how that's being implemented. But I know Interski has kind of their themes of the next generation. How do we get the next generation to ski and get everything more diverse in the country, in all of our countries skiing? So is there's something along that lines going on? How are you guys preparing there? Like, what's the message each country wants to get across? Is there a big message from each one? Richard?
Look, I don't know if we necessarily have a message. We want to give the message of what we're currently doing now and share that with the world. I think that's what the great thing about Interski is. You get to see what the world is doing and what they see works well for them with their clientele in their country, and then you can pick and choose from that as to what will you want to take home and what will work for you. So we will bring the Australian approach for sure where we're at now. It will definitely revolve around what the Interski theme is, which I think is the guest experience is everything. And we certainly believe that in Australia. We've been working very heavily on all of our models that make the experience better. So our teaching model, which will make the guests come to our ski schools better. I mean, if they learn to ski quicker and faster, they have a better time. They don't spend a lot of time in the snow in Australia on their holidays. So we got to get them going quick. We're working on a customer service model that has that as the core theme, really, is what the experience that they get out of it is. So I don't know that we're custom designing it for Interski, but it'll definitely hit that theme, and it's what we're currently doing. Yeah.
Cool. Jeff, you were shaking your head. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, we're not. We don't really see Interski as a place for us to innovate our message and experiment. I mean, I think some of the good quality conversations and discussions and ideas sharing they sort of grow out of a real in-depth but simple understanding of what it is that we do. And then I think when we really understand that, we can have really good conversations, and we can be really we get to a place where we can take a deep dive into like this little aspect or that little aspect. I mean, even up at Tremblant when Michael and Mike Hafer were up there, with us a month ago or so, even there, is a good example of how all it takes is a little conversation to start. And hey, well, how do you guys think about this? What do you, how do you describe that? Where are you going with this? And then it just blossoms into these big conversations. And, so kind of a little bit back to what we want our team to be able to do is to really be able to take those conversations to a place where we don't diverge too far from what it is that we do, because what we want to bring back is how can we evolve this further based on the things that we learned from Michael or from Richard or from their team. So our themes, absolutely, guest experience is everything. We're trying to kind of frame what we're going to do with that in mind, but also to provide then the kind of the guts of what it is that we do to back up the fact that that's actually true, that guest experience is everything. And so if it is, then what are we doing to do that, both internally, just, in the organization as a group that trains ski instructors for the industry, but then also the industry itself, at large. They're our biggest partner, and I bet if you asked the industry at large, the answer would be, yeah, the guest experience is everything. So help us. And that's what that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, cool. And Michael, as you're getting ready, and it's neat, these both guys, and I know you'll probably have it in your answer. They were talking about that, also learning. It's I know the one thing you said when you learned how to ski. I asked you that question. You learned to ski, and you came back to me back then. You said, "Well, I'm still learning. I haven't figured it all out yet." So it's kind of neat that we're hearing that theme with these guys. So yes, what does our team here, the PSIA Aussie team, bring it? But is it also more about what you want to bring back to?
Well, look, I mean, I think there's kind of two scopes to a thing like Interski. One is that you do have to show what it is the United States ski system is like. What ski, snowboard, what's our system? What's our methodology? What do we look at? What do we think is important, and how do we go about doing that? It's one thing to, I mean, you have to go out and show your wares and kind of reveal what you think to the world, because then, open minds have open conversations. So we will do that and say, here's what we think about skiing. And now let's go out to an event like Interski and go to interact with other countries and find out what they do and how they go about their process. And I mean, let's be honest, it's as the world gets smaller and smaller, the deviation gets smaller and smaller. So we're all talking about similar things. And Interski gives us a theme that says, look, everything needs to be able to kind of fall under this umbrella. So we're going there talking about different types of apples, but we're still talking about apples. But when you do that, you're able to then go and listen to what Richard has about their guest service model, or listen to what Jeff and CSIA does and talks about with how they have this triangle of ski, snow interaction, and intent. And then you start to be able to go, okay, God, that's different words to say the same thing, or that's different words to say something a little bit different. And what success is Canada or Australia or Switzerland? What success are they having? What are the challenges that they're having? And how can we take that and find a place for it within our thought process or theories or methodology? Or is that something that's completely new and different? And we should figure out a way to bring some of that to life with our membership, because it's really good. And Interski is that place to do that. You have the opportunity. You got ski instructors from all over the world put together for a week, and the goal is to go out and show what it is you do in your country, but also to look at other countries and say, okay, all of these things were the same, so this is good. We're on the right path. And then here are a few things that were different, so maybe we can see how they fit in, or hear the things that you didn't hear. And as a result, when you don't hear things, they also create trends and create voids that go, ooh, maybe there's a void here that nobody's looking at, and can be examined. And it's being a part of lots of Interskis that allows you to see those tendencies and trajectories.
Yeah. Well, Angelo's going to Interski, so he's going to be there, and I'll be home here in the East Coast of the U.S. and I'll see some of the videos. I'll see the teams skiing down the hill, which is always fun. And we've talked with Michael a little bit on his views, which is kind of neat, because I'll watch some of the teams and then I can ask him what he thinks and what they're doing for movements and different stuff. So it's neat to hear his views after I watched it, to see if I'm even in the same ballpark. I can keep my pin. But we see those things. We see the big picture things when I'm from home, and when it comes out of Interski. So does a lot of the learning happen just like it does when we're out doing our events and stuff, that the big questions come when you sit down, you're having a beer, you're having a drink end of the day, it's having breakfast, it's tuning your skis, getting ready for the next day. Like, I imagine a lot of the conversations and chatter happens separate of some of the programs. The program might happen, but then there's conversations that come off of that. I'm just curious as to, will, like, the delegates, other than the coaches and team people like Angelo who's going, will they have some of that time with the social parts and the way Interski runs? I don't know. Michael, you've been there a bunch. Jeff's been there. Sure. Richard, you've all been there how many times now?
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. 3 times. Was it 3? Did you say 3 times, Jeff?
Two on the past 2 teams, and then this is my first. I'll be my first time as coach. So to be honest, like I'm not. I don't have a super clear picture of the the coaching side of things and how what venues are created and so I think a lot of it, by the sound of it, is kind of up to us, right? I mean, Michael and I were talking about that as well at Tremblant, and the organizing committee as well seems kind of open to us. Kind of helping them set up the right opportunities for us to do that. But I mean, back to your comment, I do think that is where you really get into those really important conversations that, if I think back to my past 2 experiences, I think probably the most impactful things that I've come away with were the conversation on the chair, where you got talking about something that one, you were both interested in, and 2, you were both willing to kind of elaborate on and grow a little bit. I think when you're out, you're nervous, you're trying to present the message, you're trying to, all that kind of stuff. And then when you're out of that zone of being the presenter, I think for me anyway, I think you tune into some of those conversations a little bit more succinctly. I mean, I remember even just, actually, I think Michael, it was your guys' presentation indoors that, one thing that stood out for me that's kind of stayed with me since Bulgaria was your willingness to kind of stand up and say, hey, something we're thinking about is this: is how do we develop and how do we kind of evaluate character traits of an instructor, and since then I think you guys have done a lot of integration of that, but just being willing to kind of stand in front of the world and say, we don't know what the answer is here, but we're really intrigued by it, and we want to go down this road. Watch this space, stay tuned, we'll see you in 4 years, kind of thing is exciting. And to me, that's what this is about: is to go there knowing that you want to find some things, but not being sure of what you're going to find is kind of cool. So we got to make those opportunities for sure. Michael, we should put that on our list. Richard, we should do that. We should make sure that we actually get some momentum going for some coach get-togethers if they're not on the schedule.
Yeah, because it's neat. I see all the connections. Like I watched Richard ski because I know you're in some of Sean Warman's videos that he did the going south. I don't know if it's the exact going south, but I watched all those videos. I think it was the last one. Was the last one going south, Michael, or the one that a lot of the team did a lot of the tasks? I know Richard was in there doing some of the tasks and that. So you connect with a ton of people, and Sean was on the team one time, now alumni, but what are some of the things you remember from Interski? Was it those other conversations on the lift, and other than just in the programs you were giving or listening to, Richard, the same thing as Jeff that came out of like the lift ride?
Yeah, I think that's probably the spot where it happens most. For Angelo, if you're going over this year, it's not a lot of time during the presentations on snow to ask while the countries are giving them, especially this is my 5th term, so it has evolved, the Interski, over the years as well. And I think the groups are going to be a bit smaller this time around, but sometimes there'll be a group of 80 people following around a presenter, and so there's not a lot of time to ask questions while they're getting out what they need to get out. But those chairlift rides, if you can get on with some team members, maybe it's not the team member that's giving the presentation right there and then, it could be another team member that you can pick their brains while you're going up during a clinic. But I think that's been an important time, both for me presenting to people, and like Jeff said, it's a nice time to relax and just have more of a conversation rather than a presentation. And of course, at nighttime over a beer, I mean, Angelo, I'll have a beer with you for sure over there. It'll be fun, and we can chat about anything you want. But for me, I've always been very busy at those events too. And I'm sure Michael and Jeff can empathise with this, that if you're delivering presentations, both indoors in particular, there's a lot of work that goes in to preparing for those, making sure they're dialed in, the nervous energy, and making sure you're going to say the right thing at the right time. It sucks up a lot of that time. So I'm hoping that some of my teammates can carry that mantle this time around, and I can spend more time in bars having good conversations with other teammates. But yeah, there's lots of opportunities to do that.
Yeah. Now, Michael, you've been to a few, and you've been to the last one as the coach, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you can kind of enlighten them a little bit as the coach role. Is it easier, or is it easier to be able to get in that learning mode because you don't have that presentation you're given, or maybe the coach is giving one this year?
No, I mean, we're all a part of them. I mean, we're all a part of it, and I'm a part of a decision-making group, and I'm a part of the technical skiing, technical fundamentals, technical technique, or of our the Alpine side. So, I mean, there's lots to do, and Richard's got it right. There's a lot goes on, but for us, a lot of our membership they want to know what we take, which is really good, but they also want to find out what the rest of the countries have to say. And I think that's one of the reasons why there's such a growing participation of Interski from just membership at large, to an event like that, because they want to go and be a part of what is the energy of the event and the week, and have the opportunity to hopefully an event like Interski can kind of spark and spawn a whole, not only just the current team members of each country and the coaches of that country, which it certainly does feed for some critical thinking. But I mean, how great would it be if 100 of our membership that goes from the US, come back a little better at critical thinking about skiing and ski instruction and snowboard instruction and adaptive instruction and Nordic instruction. I mean, Finland, for gosh sakes, they're cross-country ski capital of the world almost. So, how great would it be if everybody came back thinking a little bit more critically of the job and the profession that we all have, in an attempt to be better. I mean, that can only be good.
Yeah.
I think it's cool. Sorry, just to add on that. I'm excited this year. We've actually, added a package for membership to come as well this year, which I'm excited about, because I think our membership, even when they're not team members, when they get a chance to talk to other membership, like, Michael's, 100 people that are going and so on, that drives us too, right? Like that they will come back with these really cool conversations and unique experiences and questions and comments. And so it's not just the team kind of bringing back our interpretation of those things. It's kind of all through the organization. So I'm pretty excited about that. And I think everybody's going to grow from it as well. But yeah.
How much is just, go ahead, Mike.
Well, I feel like Levy's going to do a wonderful job. I mean, we're now in the digital, not that we weren't before, but now we are very much in the digital age of things. And as a result, I mean, you used to have to go and you'd take your own video camera and you'd film it and you'd sit with somebody, you'd make notes and write it down. And I mean, we had Pete Cray and our 32 Degrees staff was at the last one. So they could really cover the event to allow us to participate in it and present, and then we would have some assignments to gain information. But I feel like Levy's going to be really good at sharing with everybody that participates everyone's at least proposals and outlines, so that you can get a sense, instead of just the U.S. making a package for the U.S. I feel like Levy is going to take care of some of that and present a package to the world to say, here's what was presented by what country and when, and I feel like it will make it a little bit easier to bring information back.
Yeah, because Angela, what are you looking forward to the most, man?
Having a beer with Richard.
I figured that right there. You got the invitation.
No, I mean, this is it's the best of the best in terms of an educational opportunity, because you've got really talented people from an assortment of countries. But the thing that makes it great in my mind is that everybody's passionate about the same topic, so there's an enthusiasm to share. And I just think that's terrific. Like I don't know of any other, I imagine there are, but I don't know of any other sports / pastimes / hobbies, lack of a better word, where there's a regularly scheduled international congress where people do this. I imagine they exist. I just don't know about it. But the opportunity for growth, plus what Michael adds about just how small the world's become because of communication technology just means we all get better really fast, and I just think that's awesome.
Yeah, he's crossing his finger. And how much is going to be just chatting with finding out about people, finding out that Richard did a lot of grass skiing and finding out, that you were the hockey player. Cause, we talked to Perry Schmuck. He was the same way, he was big into hockey. And I'm curious, if I was there, I'd be asking all the Canadian crew, like, did all of them play hockey as kids? I mean, I would imagine so. They're in Canada, but those kind of things, how much is the chatter and the conversations when you start going to Interski, just on getting to know some of the other people in that? And I guarantee, I know Michael probably has met some people that he stayed in contact with every year and all the time since he's gone the first time. How much has that gone for you, Michael, that it's just getting to know people also, not just, what's your theories on skiing and teaching theory?
Well, as I said early on, I mean, I'm fortunate Richard is one of my best friends, and Jeff is quickly becoming a good friend, not only as a colleague, but as we get to know each other a little bit. And we had great conversations in Mont Tremblant. I mean, there was one of last afternoon was the highlight of the trip, and to spend time with Kevin and Eric and Julia. I mean, there's some amazing course conductors in Canada, and hopefully we get through an event like that, which is a small version, but we talk about, what are you thinking about in your tryouts and our tryouts, and preparing for Interski, and what about this deadline, and are you ready to go? I mean, it just you start to have a connection there that you go, you know what? I know that if I coming to the National Academy, when we come to staffing the National Academy, I know that I can count on Richard, and he and I have spoken about maybe getting some other Australians that are in the US and can do that work. And, CSIA and PSIA we've kind of really gone down that road and intertwined those roots to say that we're going to participate in things together, because it just keeps you from living in a vacuum. And you get exposed to different things. And I'm much more comfortable now when I participate in a workshop, and Jeff might be in there, riding the chair with him and going, "Hey, did I hear that right? What are you taking away from this? Here's what I'm seeing." And I mean, when you start to do that, you got to kind of put down a barrier, and instead of going, "Yeah, I heard everything I need to hear," I can look and check with somebody who is a colleague and a peer from a different country to go, "Yeah, you know what? If I'm not with my teammate, I can look to Jeff, or if I'm in my workshop, I can look to Richard if there's that kind of that dull kind of getting stuck moment, I know that I can look to Jeff or to Richard, or to a Canadian or to an Australian to go, boom, here's that little bump that I need to go, yeah, that's what I meant to say, and keep my thoughts going. And, and because everybody is so involved in wanting to present well, you need that to go through, and everybody's pushing for everybody's success in that regard. So an event like Interski is wonderful. Events like we do with CSIA is fantastic, and events like Richard willingly participates at the National Academy, it just keeps that wheel going. And I know that I speak for my teammates to say that their relationships with CSIA and what we've been able to do in events, and with Richard joining us at the Academy is only positive. It's only made them grow and challenge some of the things they do and the way they do it, and it's been good for us. So.
Yeah, everything I've seen, the team has spent quite a bit of time in Canada this fall.
Yeah.
The SA team. I mean, because Matt was up there, Brenna was up there. And you were there was a few others up there. Yeah. Dave Schuling was up. Yeah. So that's pretty cool, because we talked to Perry, and he had said a little bit there was going to be some coming up, and then it's like boom, boom, boom. It's like half the team up there. It's pretty cool. So we'll have to get a hold of Perry and go. So and also our new CEO, and go down here in the US and go, when are the Canadians coming down? When are we inviting them guys down? So
National Academy.
There you go.
Yeah, you can expect to see some of us down there in April.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. And we know already Richard's going to be there, because he's always, and Michael said, and this is probably this thing, Michael says you have to be there even if you don't want to be, Richard, right? National Academy.
No, not exactly like that, but yeah, it is an awesome event, I have to say. Outside of Interski, it's one of the best domestically organised events I've been to in the ski instruction world, and I always take away stuff from it, from the presentations, and just hanging out with the PSIA team and some of the other team members from around the world. So I think it's a great. If there's any PSIA members out there thinking of going, they absolutely should. It's a great event.
Yeah, Angela's been 2-3 times now.
I was at the last 4.
4, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I'll be at this one. I'll be at the next one.
Yeah, that'll be 5 in a row.
That'll be 5 in a row.
I can count because I don't have my mittens on. I'm 5 fingers there. So, well, I've got 3 of the best here in the world on here. So we have to ask a few questions just for some favorites. People are curious, what's like your favorite ski? And I don't mean like, I know Michael's going to say a Nordica. I know Rich is going to say a Nordica. I'm hoping Jeff says something in the Blizzard line, but I mean more like what's your fun ski? Like, is it a carving ski? Is it something narrow underfoot? Like, what are some of the characteristics of the ski you love? Like, if you're going to go out and it can be any snow surface you want that day, what are you going to pick, Richard? What's your surface? What's your ski?
I know Michael's looking at me, and he probably knows the answer to this, but it's not true. If every day was a powder day, I would take that for sure, and it would not be on a slalom ski if it was my choice. But it just so happens we don't get many powder days in Australia, so we ski on narrow-waisted skis a lot. A lot of the job that I do, I work for the Ski Instructors Association running courses where we're doing demonstrations, technical skiing a lot. So I do ski on that narrow-waisted race ski a lot. But if the question is what would be my ski, and if it was my choice, it would be a Nordica Enforcer and a powder day every time.
There you go.
Who's going to argue with a powder day?
Well, I figured that's why I had to put some parameters on it. Go ahead, Jeff. What do you got?
Well, yeah, they're probably sitting right behind you there, actually. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I've been lucky enough to be with Blizzard Technica for the last 10, 11 years, and I'm kind of like Richard. I mean, we've got big mountains, we've got big snow up here, but where I end up spending a lot of my time, whether I'm teaching or training or what have you, is it's on the ground stuff. It's inbounds, and yeah, I mean, everyone that can ski would love a powder day, but there's nothing like the feeling of a good carve, some pressure, a clean ski, back to tuning the edges off of your ski, sort of stuff. You get that when you do that, right? And I mean, I'm a big fan of the WRC. The HRC is probably my day-to-day go-to. Even, admittedly, even on a powder day when I'm on something bigger, I'm still impressed with the powder ski that can still let me carve on the way back to the base of the hill, right? Like that, and the technology these days is just awesome because you can get that, right? You can get a nice fat underfoot ski, and then you can still tip it over on the groom stuff. But admittedly, that's kind of where that's what I look for often. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen Michael bring a real fat, wide powder ski out to Masters Academy. Look at him now.
Dave, that's a dumb question. That'd be a dumb question.
Well, we kind of had it on Friday. That was an Eastern powder day.
No, 4 inches doesn't. 4 inches does not make the powder day.
Michael, if it's sidewall deep here, sometimes in the East, it's a powder day, man.
And you still don't need something 100 under the foot. It only helps you spin around in circles at the bottom of the turn when the edge doesn't hold.
Oh man! So what's the widest?
Put those marks on your ski pole because you're skiing.
Oh, I know. We did mention that he did check my poles. He checks my poles, not just he'll check my poles.
I have a 114. I have a 114. No,
what's that?
No. I have a 114.
114. Now, do you only use that when you're down in Portillo, or?
I have one down there. Yeah. But I mean, look again. If it's a day that's needed for 104, then it's a good day no matter what's happening.
Yeah.
And here in the Sierras, it is in town. It's pouring rain now, but up on the ski area, it's going to be snowing, and they're calling for 5 feet of snow. So it's not like rain's not a bad thing in Tahoe in the Sierras. Starts out wet and it gets cold as the storm goes on. It's just this beautiful. So then, something wide would be fun. I look forward to it. My favorite condition is cut up powder and small little bumps that test my balance, and I like it. I like that condition on something that's wide, but I can also appreciate the touch that someone like Richard has, and with somebody with a ski that's narrow like that in softer snow conditions. So,
and how much does Jeff and Richard? How much do you do with your boots and play with them? Are they dialed in? Do you not tweak them anymore? I mean, I always ask Michael because it always intrigues me how much he experiments and searches out there for. I watch him ski and I go, "What's he searching for, man? I'm just trying to get halfway there." But I'm curious, like, how much do you play with your boots, or was it kind of a process? You have it and it's there, or I don't know.
Richard, you go.
Well, funny story. You always are playing for sure. I mean, I've skied in the same Nautica boot they haven't changed the Nautica Doberman race boot for a long time. They've gone through little cycles of change, but as soon as I get a new one, I know exactly where I need to grind it, punch it, push it out, roughly where to set it up, but it doesn't stop you playing around with it. You get in it, and sometimes you feel something just a little bit different and you change. Whether it be cuff alignment or a footbed change or a tweak to the canting underneath. So you're always looking at those things. But the funny story is that I just dialed in a brand new pair of boots before coming over to the States this year, and all of my luggage has been lost for the last 2 months, including my ski boots. And I know it's a rookie move not to put your ski boots on the plane, but I thought I had plenty of time before I needed them. So I'm actually skiing in a pair of Mike's old boots at the moment.
Oh, God.
And I'm tweaking them a lot.
Wow.
Tweaking them a lot.
That's awful, man.
Probably never hear the end of that.
See, that's why Richard went first, because that's a story about boots. I don't really have a story about boots. I mean, once I get into a fit that works, I'm sticking with it. I'm in the same. I just went to new shells this year. I'm in the 130 Firebird 130 World Cup, and 93. I got narrow feet, and once I came from Lang, which also could have it had a narrow fit, and then when I went to the Technica, I was super stoked to find something that fit that way. So once I got that dialed, I've just literally kind of carbon copied my punches from shell to shell over the last 3 versions, and so I'm a bit of a creature of habit that way. I've played a little bit with lift here and there, a little bit in the front, a little bit in the back. But I tend to mess with tunes more than anything, like just different side angles, base bevels, and stuff. But I've found a boot that works, and I tend not to mess with it too much.
Yeah. So what are you running for angles now on the ski?
3 and 0.7 in most cases. Yeah.
Yep.
Anything like most on piste. Anything like bonafide. If I'm in something deeper, I've kind of left that at 2 and 1, just because it's a little easier to fix as well if you find something hard under there. But but 3 and 0.7 seems to work pretty well for me.
So if you've been in the tune room, Richard, with Michael, I imagine there's a lot of angle playing with, and so what angles? Look at Michael going, no. What are you running on those slalom skis?
Well, I won't give away Mike's angles, but I'm very similar to Jeff. 3 on the side, 0.7 on the base, sometimes 0.5, depending on the type of ski. I mean, one of the sort of race room slalom skis, I'll put a 0.5 on, which I'm going out of very firm snow on a lot, so that holds really well, 0.5 and 3. And then if it's I got many different slalom skis. Some are free skiing slalom skis, a little bit wider, more the retail type slalom ski that flexes a bit more, which you can ski everywhere. I teach on that ski a lot. So that would have more of a 0.7 on the base, just to be able to steer it a bit better and skid it around a bit better if you need to. But every ski's different. My fat skis, like Jeff's, are different as well. They've got more base bevel. less angle on the side because you don't need it.
Yep. And Michael, what do you have? Like 3 under the foot, 4 in the tip, and 2 in the tail for side edge? Or what are you playing with now?
No,
No.
no, it's always been more or less the same. It's simple, right in line with these guys. I do happen to put a little bit more on my side, but it's all right in line. Somewhere in the half to 3/4 if it's under 80, and if it gets over 90, it might get a little bit more on the base, but the side usually doesn't change a whole lot. And to be clear about this boot thing, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say, all the little changes and adjustments are in search of something that's specific. I know what it is. I got a feel for it. Richard knows what he wants, and he's got a feel for it. Jeff knows what he wants, and he's got a feel for it. So it's not out there poking in the dark, driving your boot fitter nut, getting all whacked out in your own head about, well, I'm using, Kmart duct tape instead of Gorilla tape. And how many layers? We're just not stabbing in the dark. We have to find out, to learn a little bit about our skiing and to develop your own skiing and technique and your own feels. You make a change to see if it produces the result that you think it would. It's not ready, fire, aim. It's exactly what you're aiming for, and you're ready for it, and you fire when you're aiming. It's not shooting in the dark. It's not random stuff.
So I am making another note here. Stop using Kmart duct tape.
Yeah.
All right.
See? Yeah.
Oh God, I love that.
You can't get your duct tape from Timmy Hortons when you're getting
also a true statement.
I know.
So I'm interested, Michael. I've been talking with Mr. Walsh, Troy, and I know he's had some conversations with you about skis and ski length. A little bit. I don't know if you remember. Well, Troy was running a little longer skis than he is now. Kind of running similar lengths to you, mid 170s, that kind of area. And I'm curious, when you're not on the slalom skis, Richard, said they're on that hard snow. He likes that slalom ski, and I could tell by his reaction to knowing what Michael was going to say he was going to pick. He likes that ski. But when you're on something else, the Enforcer, those kinds of stuff, is there a length, a radius you kind of like for most stuff, Michael?
Radius? Yeah. Mid-teens seems to be great.
Yeah.
I think mid-teens is about everybody's sweet spot. It's really nice. Mid to upper teens.
Yeah.
Robin just poked her head and said, "What?" So I stand corrected, and I got to make sure. But look, we had a training a couple of years ago on Super G skis and big long skis and big long radiuses. It's really, really good. It's really, really good to have big long skis with big long radiuses because they make you be precise. The knock that I would give about skiing all the time not to Richard, because the way that man gets a slalom ski to perform is nothing short of beautiful to watch. But you get that amount of side cut, and you almost get a better turn than you deserve sometimes. Unless you can then
Jeff, write it down.
Was that Robin?
I also think I heard Robin laughing in the
Was
background.
she giggling back there?
Yeah.
Well, but I've always said it. Look, side cut's a beautiful thing, and it's wonderful to have. But there's probably not enough appreciation for a good skidded turn. And that's just well shaped in the environment. But there is something beautiful about a ski that's on its side and bent, and you can shrink the radius. The challenge is you take a ski that's 12 meters and all you'd make is 24-meter turns or something similar to that. You take the radius and go longer. It's going to do that for you every day of the week, no matter what you're doing, or again, almost better than you deserve. But if you can take that radius and shrink it by bending it, then you're onto something. Then I think you're skiing like someone like Richard Jameson does, or Brenna Kelleher, or the Flynn brothers, or Jeff Marks. Then you're doing something special with that tool. But if you're using the tool and it's just kind of helping you get something more than you really deserve, that's what I think.
Richard, he said it's okay to be on that 13 meter, the low T. But I mean, is that like, I ask more because like, is that the arc you love? Is that like the sensation from skiing, or is there a different radius you love to ski on also?
Yeah, I think my philosophy on this has changed over time a little bit. I stuck on that smaller radius for quite a while when I was training and developing, and maybe it wasn't necessarily the best thing for me at the time either, but I got to know that. But I think now I look at it as you choose the tool and the radius for the job that you want to do that day, and if you stick to one all the time, you're compromising in a bunch of different areas. So, use the slalom ski, for example, that makes a very good slalom turn, but it compromises on that very fast, strong, powerful, bigger turn and also in the softer snow and the off-piste. So I have a bunch of different skis that are all different radiuses, and I choose the tool for the job I want to do that day. You obviously can't change every run. So for this trip, I'm in Steamboat. It's snowing a lot. I brought an all-mountain ski that's 84 underfoot and probably around that 16 meter radius. And so that'll do everything that I need to do this trip. It'll be able to do a pretty good arced turn if I need to tip it over. It'll ski the soft snow well and the bumps well because it flexes well. So I think choose maybe if you can afford a quiver, get a quiver and try a bunch of different ones.
Yeah. Jeff, you were talking that HRC and WRC. So are you running those in the mid and upper teens, like 174, 175 on those for length?
Yeah, 174 in the HRC and actually 180 in the WRC at the 18 meter. So which is kind of similar to what Richard was saying. And actually recently I've added the SRC as well, because we'll go to Interski on a slalom ski. And that's not kind of in my typical wheelhouse. I'm usually the mid-teens to upper teens. But I find, bouncing between those ranges, which is, between the 180 WRC and the 165 SRC, like that's a pretty, the different skis, but it kind of changed, like for me, it changes the a little bit of the speed at which I can work on a thing. Obviously the amount of feedback you're going to get. And it kind of, the WRC kind of opened my eyes to some things about my skiing as well, right? I think if you get on the right ski that can tell you certain things as much as you can work on certain things, I think there's a lot of value in that as well. I kind of like what Michael said there is, are you adopting a ski that covers up things, or are you adopting a ski that actually helps you develop things? And I think you can do all those things, right? I mean, the ski industry is awesome that way. But I've just had a lot of fun doing it, messing around with different ski lengths and, trying to get that bigger ski to carve, or trying to get that I agree with Michael too on the drifting side of things, like being able to finesse the ski in ways to get really specific things done. That by looking at the ski, you might not think it's designed to do that. It tells you a lot. It's kind of cool. So I bounce around a little bit. Tend to default right back in the middle though most days when I'm out there teaching. The 174 HRC. It's what a lot of our guests are on. Something like that. It's right in the middle of the road. So yeah.
Go ahead, Michael.
Jeff brings up a point about going to Interski with slalom skis, and I think that's the tendency. That's the tendency. I mean, there's something beautiful about slalom ski. If you can manage the load and unload of a slalom ski, you're doing something right. So, but you got to load it up well, and then be able to control it well. So there's something beautiful about that, and high end, very high end about managing the loading and releasing of a slalom ski. But at Interski, that's something that'll happen. Everybody will be on slalom skis for the reason that a high performance, tighter arc is readily available. It's easy to find. Some of the differences, some of the things that will separate people can they control when you just look at ski technique? Can you control that load and release from one turn to the next? How do you control that load and release? That'll be something that I feel like that's something that I look at. I can remember a bunch of Interskis ago starting to see that, and that became the kind of a line in the sand for me of this is good skiing and this is really good skiing. Was how do you control that loading and unloading of the ski through a transition? Where your feet in relation to where you are, and are your feet getting out ahead of you for too long and starting to be out ahead of you as you enter the next turn, and who can control it and keep that release underneath you, as we would say, so that the front of the ski continue to work the beginning of the turn. So that's something that, Angelo, you could look for. I know that's something that I look for when I look at my peers and colleagues. How do you control that? Because everybody will be on a slalom ski. I mean, we went to Interski. The U.S. went to an Interski in St. Anton and brought different skis to just talk about just that exact message. We had everything from a slalom ski to a beginner ski to a really wide, at that time, I think we were at 112 under the foot, full rocker, and to talk about different turn shapes and what was available to people. And sadly, it fell a little bit it got missed. I won't say it fell on deaf ears, but it got missed in the conversations a little bit about shaping and creating different shapes, because I think that's what our guests want. I mean, our guests aren't always, some of them are. I know Richard spends a lot of time carving with a couple of his students, and we all do. But there are also people that just want to ski all day long and navigate a mogul field, or navigate the day till the end of the day after a foot of fresh snow has fallen. And chances are hooking them up isn't going to do that successfully.
Yeah. I still want to be on that beginner hill when we have Michael Rogan and Richard Jameson teaching beginners on their magic carpet snowboard. I want to be there to see that, Angelo.
We trade edgy wedgies and talk about our mitten suckers often.
You could probably sign up for lessons with both of them.
Maybe I should sign up. I could learn to finally make a wedge turn, or
don't just talk about it. I mean, you put it out there, you got to go online and reserve.
Hey, if it's going to get me to Tahoe, I'm ready to roll.
You going to tip these? You going to tip these guys?
Damn right, man. Damn.
Well, I gotta say something too.
I'd wait to see if the product is good. Don't jump in throwing your money out the window.
Well, if I don't like the lesson, I'm just going to go north. I'm going to go up north and visit Jeff, and he can fix everything.
Well, you never know if the timing's right. We may have invited Michael up here as well. So maybe you can knock two birds off your, or two boxes off your list there. But I gotta say something that I thought was actually really cool. So, ever since Tremblant, Michael and then Mike Hafer and I, we've been in touch a little bit on a couple of things that we were chatting about, a little bit of reflection on it. But I sent them a text over Christmas, said, "Hey, hope you're having a great weekend." And what I thought was cool is, Michael's response was, teaching beginners on the magic carpet on Christmas Day, and I think there's something cool to that, because I don't think a lot of people would expect that the Alpine coach of the PSIA going to Interski would be out there, on the front lines, on the magic carpet, teaching beginners. And I think that's super cool. I know, Richard, you teach skiing. I'm teaching skiing at Lake Louise when I can fit it in. And I don't know. I think there's a lot of value to that, because I think it gives, I think if we're going to go to Interski and we're going to talk about the intricacies of how the ski works on the snow, if you put pressure on it or you don't put pressure on it, or, all that kind of stuff, to know that actually means something in some way to that beginner on the magic carpet is huge, because I think that's what actually speaks to our members. And anyway, so I just wanted to bring that up, because I thought that was pretty cool. It wasn't, to be honest, the response I was expecting, but I was like, that's cool. That's really neat, because I think our membership benefits from that too, and it also gives us the perspective. If we're going to design materials that helps if we want to be the education arm of what we do, we've got to be at that level too. So that's anyway. applaud you, Michael, on that. It's awesome.
No, Richard and I are shoulder to shoulder. I'll let him get in there.
It happens a lot, and a lot of people don't believe it, but we're out there teaching in the beginner area a lot. And on what you're saying there, Jeff, I can't agree more. Like in Australia, I'm teaching instructors all the time, and I'm training them to do their job. And rather than just teaching an expert, teaching them how to be an expert, this is my time up here where I get to experiment and figure out where things go, and not just be theoretical with what we do. And so, and I'm sure, Michael, you're out there doing the same thing. I know we don't talk about it in these words all the time, but I'm out there not teaching an APSI beginner lesson. I'm out there teaching something completely different to see what will happen. So, Dave, if you want to come and take a beginner lesson, you might just be one of my lab rats. And
that's okay.
But that's how things evolve, and that's how I stay in tune with whether in Australia, whether our theory is right and where it could go. So,
now, I don't know if it was Michael or someone who was from the team. It might have been Michael, probably both of them. There's someone else too that came on the podcast, and they're talking about the lab rats, and like I'm out there experimenting, and I feel bad for these students. They're my little experiments, and like I should be like, am I doing the right thing? But it's kind of neat because I know, Michael, I know you spend time teaching beginners. I know you do. And probably a lot of people don't know that. And even when you say it, don't believe it. But I know you're out there doing it. And it is cool. And it is fun to experiment. And we were talking in the locker room. I was with a few of my pros yesterday, just asking them to do something different in the beginner thing than they always do. I said, do you ever do it different? Well, no, I do it the same way every time. I'm like, well, how do you know it's the best way? If you just keep doing the same thing, you're going to get a result, but you don't know it's the best way. So it's neat to hear the best of the best, saying even, I'm not doing the APSI thing. I'm out doing this experiment to see if I get something better, which is cool.
Well, I think there's a theme back to the reason to get the three, Richard and Jeff and I together talking about Interskis and themes. I mean, you get into that, people plugging a tape in. I guess you don't plug in tapes anymore. Well, yeah.
Oh man.
Okay, wait. I'm going to write that down as well.
What do you do? Shuffle through your download files or your playlist. But when you just hook up the beginner playlist, there you go. See, I figured I'd get. When you just plug in put on the beginner playlist, and what I would teach, or what any of us would teach, or almost probably 90% of the people that are going to listen to this, which is all six of us, because we figure we'll get Matt to listen. Boyd will listen to this once.
Well, and you can probably count Rob. Robin can hear half of it.
Robin's already hearing all of it, so that counts.
Fair enough. But when you put in that playlist, then you're susceptible to things like being concerned about your teaching and not about their learning. You're teaching, the what it is could be the same thing. The way that I would, or Richard or Jeff would approach the lesson, are probably pretty similar in what we would teach, but we wouldn't get caught up in that to not address the fact that there's a new person in front of us, or we're in front of every lesson, and how we teach that stuff changes based on that individual and that person or that environment or that situation or that day. When we all know our beginner areas change on a daily day-to basis. It'll be soft and slow one day because they made new snow on it, and then it'll be after a rain and frozen the next day when the skies turn clear again, and the beginner, what you could go from the top to the bottom and not worry about hitting the fence, and now suddenly you can't go 10 feet up the hill and not worry about getting cheese grated through the fence. So if you don't recognize those changes in situations, then you're plugging in your playlist, beginner playlist, and you're playing the same stuff, and that's when burnout happens. And that's when people that talk about being burned out about teaching skiing, that's where you fall short, is because you're doing the same thing the same way every day, and you're not including the variable of that person in front of you. And when you forget about that variable, then you're not teaching, and you're not helping. More importantly, back to the theme of interski, which I think Australia will talk about and Canada will talk about, and I know that the USA is talking about, is you're not talking about learning. You're not talking about creating learners. You're not talking about not only the students learning, but you're learning about how to approach a situation differently so that you don't get caught partway through the Christmas break and the supervisor says, well, I'm sure everybody's tired, and everybody goes, ooh, yeah, I'm exhausted. Oh, what the hell are you exhausted for? We get to teach skiing. We're interacting with people every day, and it should be fun. And if it's exhausting, you can get tired, but if it's exhausting mentally, it's just because you're doing the same. I was just about to say you're doing the same shit the same way all the time, and I didn't want to say that.
But you're not going to say that.
Well, don't say
I'm not going to say
that.
No,
you
I won't say it. Yeah.
It's a family show.
Yeah.
And
but that's what happens. That's what happens, and that's where we get stuck. And that is a theme that is going to be taken by Canada Interski and Australia Interski, because those countries, and Richard's guest service model it's CARE. It stands for it's care, and that's the stuff where you fall short when you get tired or you get burned out. That's what happens.
I would like to add to that too, or not add, but just point out that I don't know what happens in Australia and Canada, but I know in the States, sometimes PSIA, ASI takes a lot of heat from members who, in my opinion, aren't particularly involved and don't really know the intricacies. And the organization is accused of, inventing, rewriting the laws of physics, reinventing things just to sell books. And you hear the word they a lot. They do this. But here's the head coach of the Alpine team teaching. I mean, when you talk about singers, you talk about range of voice. Here's a guy who teaches beginner lessons on a Tuesday, right? And then like the next Thursday is in Levi, Finland, presenting to national teams from all these Alpine countries, right? Like that is the biggest that's a little alien in my hand. Sorry if that's distracting. That is the biggest perceivable range you can have as a ski teacher, from never ever beginners through members of national teams. And I just want to point that out because it just makes everything going on really, really relevant to the people it should be relevant to, which is the
Richard does it. I know Jeff, I'm sure Jeff does it. The members of the CSIA team, the members of the APSI team, they're all teaching skiing for a living and also doing this. And that's when things are really good.
It's so authentic. Yeah. It's so genuine and organic when it happens that way. And I want to point that out because I accidentally look at Facebook sometimes and read some of those posts. And it's like, I hope some of those folks who have those opinions about the organization listen to this and hear what Michael just said, because that's the whole package right there. Yep. Thanks for saying that, Michael. Yep.
I think too, like, if I can add to that, like I find when when I have those moments where I'm teaching a person, right? Like I'm just the ski pro. I'm out there. I'm teaching the student that was assigned to me in the morning, which is awesome. Like I love that thing. And I mean, Richard, Michael, you guys are definitely in this boat. I mean, we're in roles where when we say something or when we describe something or when we choose to go with this is what we're going to do. We're doing it on behalf of a national organization. And that's you got to choose your words so carefully, and you got to do this. And while we're doing that, the rest of the national organization is also looking at the decisions we're making and going, well, yeah, that's exactly the way I do it. But then there's also the person saying, that's not exactly the way I do it. But the comparison being, I think it's in those moments where I'm teaching that beginner, and what actually matters at that moment is how they understand what is being said here and how they experience the thing that we're doing. And that's where I think, not to speak on behalf of you guys, but I think that's where like the learning really happens for us, where we go, okay, well, I said it this way and it worked. And it may not be the way it's written in our manual in that moment, but it's a little bit like Michael's boot fitting comment. Like we're not out there just throwing darts randomly. We're actually experimenting quite specifically and trying to evolve our own craft. And we happen to be in roles that when we evolve our own craft, that might be the way that the organization evolves as well. So I think we're all kind of saying the same thing. Like there's maybe that's the spot for the tagline. The guest experience is everything, right? Like we gotta look at the outcomes of what we do on the snow day to day, to test whether that's actually viable out there in the real world. The other thing too is I think when we boil what we do down to as many um, uh, kind of first principles or truths or whatever you want to call them, then we deviate less and we become more cohesive in what we do. And that's, you'll see that from us, at Interski and moving forward. It's one of the things you see in that video, Dave, that you shared the other day, is we're really trying to help our members understand what happens at the snow level, what really happens down there and why, because all of those outcomes, right from the beginner skier to the Interski coach, what happens on the snow is actually really important. And when you can understand how to think about skiing, it'll really help any ski pro. And we're going through some growing pains doing that, right? Like we're changing our system considerably to kind of drive it back a little bit more to a physics in front kind of approach. But it's working, not to take the mic for too long, but I taught a 14-year-old kid 2 days ago at Lake Louise. And one of my questions to him was, "Hey, are you a physics guy?" And he's like, "Yeah." and we started talking about ground reaction force and how that affects the ski and all this kind of stuff. And he tries a couple things and he's like, "That was so cool." And I'm like, I've never had that reaction from a 14-year-old before, but they're out there, like, and that's our future. Mm-hmm. That's our future of our organization is those people. So anyway, I'm going on a little bit, but I get excited about it because I think it's neat. We're in a neat industry that allows us to do the interski and allows us to encounter the beginner on the slope. But it all of those vast kind of array of experiences, we can hone our craft with real specificity, which is a pretty neat spot to be.
It is really easy for educators to lose touch with learning and students as they climb the ladder. And you guys haven't done that. So, hats off to you, because that's why what is going on in the ski world is so good, because you're grounded in the base level of it. That's so important.
And I think any ski pro can find that spot if they look for it. I think it's out there for sure.
No, I'm glad you took the mic. It's what we love on here, is because to have the three of you on and the level, one of the cool things, and Michael's been super supportive. We tease him; he's been on so many times. So it's like if Michael calls, he texts, anything, it's like, dude, let's go chat. And because it's awesome. This is so many of our members, and I'm curious where here in our country, being so big, and I know Canada is pretty spread out, but I know the ski world is pretty centered in Australia. But you said everyone kind of spirals out and then comes there in your winter. It's they don't get a lot of connection. A lot of our members sometimes to people like yourselves and Michael and our team, and this has been a great way for a lot of our members to hear folks. So it's great to have not just our team, but folks from other countries chatting on here. And that's what I'm curious of how much does in Australia and in Canada, do your regular members get to see, I mean, how spread out is your team? The level fours, I know in Canada, is it easy for them in your countries to ski with them? I mean, here, like to ski with Michael, I've got to get my gold pin and go to Masters Academy usually here in the East to be able to have the chance. I don't know. Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, for us, I mean, our Interski team members are course conductors. There's typically a requirement, for them to even enter the process. They need to be involved as a course conductor, partly because they need to know what it is that we do. And they also they are a vehicle for our message, and they're an aspect of the organization, which is effectively, they are the product, right? When we're out there on snow, they are the product. So the membership, they are encountering those people often. And, we try to make sure that we get them available for certain events so they can, tell the story. They can talk about their journey to get there. They can talk about the journey after and stuff. So as available as we can make them, we do. And the good thing is, like the having been on an Interski team, that never goes away either. So there's always those like the past team's experience, the team before that, the team before that, and so on. So it's they're pretty available, and they're spread out across the country. Part of our selection process does involve a reasonable geographic representation of the country as well, so that we're not just all in one spot, and it works out great.
I'd like to pose a question to these guys. This is something I'm dealing with at my mountain presently. We're having a lot of struggles with family lessons, multi-age, multi-level, that sort of lesson. And I'm wondering if you guys can speak to that for a minute. Richard, do you have some input on that?
Yeah, again, just going off of the conversation we had prior to this about us being out there on the front line. I mean, I've taught many family privates side by side with Michael there at Heavenly too, and it's a different type of lesson, but it's definitely something that's popular with families wanting to stay together. And I'd say even more so over the last 2 years with not wanting to go outside of the family unit too much with what was going on in the world. But it is a hard lesson if you look at it in a two-dimensional way, but it's actually quite a unique and fun lesson if you look at it in a more three-dimensional way, meaning that you can break that up any way you'd like to make it work. And as a guide to the day in the mountains for that family, you've got to, work with them to see what their goals are and make some suggestions, and not just have to teach them all together at the slowest paced youngest person in the group, for example, which a lot of people approach it that way, that it's just a group lesson. It doesn't have to be. It can be 6 lessons going on all throughout the day, but coming back together and spending time with one another at different intervals during the day. So that's how I approach that day, is depending on what the family wants and what they want to get out of it, and what obviously different experiences they have and bring to the table. But I try to break it up to give them what they want.
I think that permission to think about it that way is really important for a lot of instructors, because I think the first inclination is to feel a lot of pressure to get everybody doing the same stuff at the same time, and that's just probably not feasible. So thank you for saying that, because I think coming from you, it's gonna mean something to a lot of people.
So as we start to finish up, because I could chat all night, having the opportunity to chat with you guys. Thanks so much for taking the time in that. But I want to just kind of hopefully instill to some of our listeners how much the three of you prepare for the ski season. And I know it might be different for Michael and Richard, because you have ski season to ski season with your kind of the bands in between. But how do each of you get ready, or I should say maybe just stay in shape and primed physically to do the ski season? Jeff?
I'm surrounded by mountains and trails and, you name it out here. So summertime activity is that's not a difficult thing, running, mountain biking, things like that. I went through kind of a period where I suffered with some back problems. So I became a bit of a gym guy at that time, and found myself at home there. Admittedly, recently, in this role, I've been busier than has allowed me to kind of stay on that path. So I've actually got some work to do myself to do a little catching up. But yeah, it's typically, lots of endurance type stuff through the summer, a little bit more strength training, approaching the winter. And then through the winter, it's just maintenance, just trying to make sure that I'm just doing the right things after the long plane ride or the long drive, and being smart. And I'm not always there, but so far so good.
Yeah. Richard, you're doing it winter. There's not a lot of summer, I don't think. So how do you maintain and keep it going?
Yeah, I've done a lot of skiing in the last 25 years. Let's put it that way. Yeah. I've had a summer since 97. And wow. So yeah, a lot of it is maintenance, and a lot of it is doing different things. Because we get a lot of repetitive injuries and different parts of your body building up in different ways if you're just doing the same repetitive sport over and over again. So when I get the opportunity to go and do something different, I think that's part of my routine. So in between the seasons, I'll go surfing, which is a lot of upper body workout for anyone that's gone surfing before. Mountain biking, of course, but that's still a little bit lower body, but trying to do something different. And then during the season, I'm in the gym maintaining a lot of things to avoid injury. Also had some back injuries and some other things that I got to try to take care of. So we got a great gym in Tahoe that we go to, and it's not a very intensive program to necessarily develop strength to perform better. It's more about just avoiding injury so I can keep performing.
Michael, you were pretty heavy for a lot of years until COVID hit. I mean, you were winter, summer, when we had no summer. It was like from Portillo to north or what?
Did I just get called fat?
I think
did you mean that, or did you mean something else?
Did I say? I didn't say fat.
No, you said heavy.
Did you get COVID fat?
No.
Called the dude heavy.
No, I'm fortunate I get to ski in Portillo, Chile in the summertime, and that season can go a little bit long. But you know what I do mostly is I like to mountain bike. When Richard comes back from Australia, we get to ride as much as we can. I feel like in the beginning of the season, some of the stretching is done by swinging a golf club. You know, I mean, that's good if you swing well. It's good for the back to stretch it in the twisting form. I'd like to say that I was more of a athletic pursuer than I am, but I'm not. I don't stretch much, but I knock on wood so far, it doesn't hurt. But what I find that I do is I do skate up our beginner area a lot. I rarely ride the carpet. I usually skate up it, and that's not the only thing, but that at least helps get your blood flowing when you're because I feel like all of us and a lot of us out there, we can ski ourselves out of shape. We can work our way out of shape. We can start in good shape, and then we get into the teaching season and the holiday time and the new year, and we can very much find ourselves having worked a lot, but not really skied for us a lot. So I look forward to the next couple of weeks when we slow down and having a training in Vail and get with my teammates and ski hard for a while. But a top to bottom run down Gun Barrel right now puts a hurting on me at Heavenly Ski Resort. And that's 1,800 vertical feet of mogul. So that puts a hurt on me. I can't do it nonstop. I tried the other day and I had to stop twice. So I'll get better.
Angela, we might have to stop like 6 times, maybe twice to pick up our stuff.
You can speak for yourself. but I will tell you that chopping that run into thirds makes it the size of my mountain times 3. So I get it. I get where you're coming from.
Oh, there you
go. So thanks a lot. I mean, I do want to I want to give you guys a chance after I thank you, but thanks a lot. It is awesome. Michael's been on with us a bunch of times. He's always supportive. He encourages his team here to get on with us, which is great. It's really awesome for our members and those that listen, but to take the time, and I know you travel and just get into the hotel room and Richard jumps on here. So thanks a lot just for your time and that it's, I know that our listeners love it. And Angela and I know we appreciate it a bunch. But is there something you'd like to leave the listeners with? I know Michael usually has a message or something going for Interski.
Well, look, I just think that it's wonderful that, you guys bring on such great guests, and I think there's such a value to finding other opinions and to share this platform with you two. Dave and Angelo is certainly great, and having the opportunity to do it a couple of times, but now to be able to be a part of it with Jeff and Richard is really good. I mean, these are the things that you teach skiing for, and you get involved in your organization for, and you stretch your boundaries and your borders a little bit. So that you're not living in a vacuum, and certainly in my trips to Canada this year and having the Canadians come to participate in the academy and looking forward to interacting with them and Interski is going to be wonderful. And I mean, I can't speak enough about the refresh I get from spending time with Richard. So
Cool. Angela, anything?
I appreciate the time. I mean, it's been a treat to hear you guys talk, and what's awesome is, not surprising, but awesome anyway. More similarities than differences, as it should be, right? Doesn't matter where you're from. Find something you love with somebody from the other side of the planet, and you can get along great and learn from each other and benefit from each other. I just think that's the best of the best. And so thank you guys all for coming on.
Yeah.
Are you guys planning on doing an episode from Levi?
If Angelo gets time, we'd love
Jeff,
to. Yeah.
We're better at planning than we are at execution. So yes, we are absolutely planning to do something for
Yes.
Levi.
There you go.
No doubt.
That's all you got to say. That's the
Yes. That is the plan.
Yeah,
that is
awesome.
and yes. Yeah.
Well,
Jeff,
we plan on hopefully.
Are you volunteering to be on the show from Levi?
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
For sure.
There you go.
Yeah.
We got to make it happen.
And Mike will come on.
You want some of our team members out there? Yeah. Let us know for sure. It'd be fun to do.
Yeah,
During,
we definitely
after,
would love.
I think this is the start of something beautiful. I could tell.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks a lot.
The one quote that I wrote from Richard was more time in bars. So that's where we'll find it. We're going to do a show from the bar in Levi with all of us.
Oh God!
Happy to do that, Angelo. Come down to go into town. Get in the bar.
Sounds great. Looking forward. I hope your stuff shows up, Richard. I hope your luggage finds you.
His boots and his luggage are waiting in Levi. That's where all your stuff is. It's in Finland already, just sitting there waiting.
His nose. That's where. Yeah, that's where it's got to be. Thanks, you guys. This is great. Totally appreciate it.
So, all right, cool. Thanks everybody for listening. This has been the Fall Line with Chaos and Company.